Jack, why do you think it's taken us this long to sit down and actually record something?
Um, I think it's a combination of potentially other life priorities combined with motivation, um, especially in terms of we've very clearly, both of us, been on the same page multiple times that we want to do this. However, there's a large difference between when you're discussing something and motivated to do it and actually putting the thing into place to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd even say that that's when there's the importance of being able to do something when you're not motivated, and that it's absolutely way more essential to learn to do things when you're not motivated, because if you can do something when you're not motivated to and still get it done, then it makes it 10 times easier when you actually do have the motivation to do it.
Yeah, and I think a part of, because for those of you who obviously don't know, um, no one will know this. They don't know us, Jack. That's the thing. This is the
They don't
first. They
know.
don't even know us. Me and Jack talk very, very regularly. We send voice notes back and forth. Basically like self-therapy, like therapizing each other kind of thing, and it's just like obviously part of our friendship. To essentially just listen and provide sort of like a outsider's perspective on our day-to-day thoughts, pretty much, things that we're obviously going through, and it's really worked out quite well for us, I think, to have that outlet, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been, from my perspective, it's been, especially in terms of you and the journey
Yeah.
that you're on and where you started to where you are now, is, I find, extremely interesting. And um, I won't use the word like motivational, but inspiring, and I think there would be to a lot of other people as well. The difficult thing is there that you can't go back in time and see the Dave that was to the Dave that is now,
Yeah.
which is, so we're talking from a learned perspective, which we've both experienced and kind of been through this, well, like a friendship journey together, really. I
It
would say
really
it's
has. Yeah.
definitely, it's blossomed a true friendship, which is the same with any relationship, is that a relationship gets its strongest when you actually go through shit together.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said
There
for
is.
that
Yeah.
alone, especially in relation to kind of modern society and how people tend to be, like, let's say, for example, on the dating scene at the moment. This is one small example from other friends that are on the dating scene. Obviously, I'm not, but that it seems to be this: if you don't tick all of these boxes, if you don't tick, if you tick all of these boxes, even except for one, then I'm not even slightly interested in you. And it's like, well, how can anything grow from that? Like, it doesn't matter how perfect a person that you find. Like, you could find an absolute goddess of a woman, for example, who ticked all of your boxes and everything. It doesn't matter how perfect they are. When you're in a relationship, things are going to there's going to be issues along the way. Like, it's never just going to be smooth sailing, whether that's a friendship or a intimate relationship. There's going to be issues, and part of that relationship getting stronger and part of creating a genuine, long lasting and solid friendship or relationship or whatever it is going through those hardships together and overcoming them and finding a common ground, because you're not always going to agree on everything with anyone, right? That's the beauty of being an individual. But this day and age, it seems to be that as soon as somebody, or often is the case, obviously it's not everybody, but often seems to be the case, that as soon as your opinion opposes mine or doesn't match,
Yeah.
it's just like, well, throw you away. And it's like, why? Like, where's the growth to be had from that?
And I think this can hold true for both romantic and platonic friendships as well. I think that ultimately people are just we just have choice paralysis now, don't we? We have the ability to analyze deeply every single person we come across and want almost like perfect relationships in every facet of our lives, right?
Yeah, it seems to be more and more the case in, I don't know if I'm wording this right, in what I would class as like modern day society, like where we are now. It seems to be that there's less willingness to adapt and change, and more of a mindset of, if you don't fit my box,
Mm.
go away, kind of thing.
Compromise. The idea of
Which I don't,
compromise, right?
I personally, yeah, exactly. There's no compromise. And I don't believe that that creates a healthy mentality. Um, it, and I also believe it can create a lot of loneliness for a person if they're not willing to um accept that other people have opposing opinions, you know. It cuts off, well, it's the start of wider conflict in general, isn't it? Like, as soon as communication breaks down, it it's the downfall of everything. You know, I know that's like to look on it from a much deeper perspective, but communication, whether it's in relationships, friendships, in terms of peace within the world, like as soon as communication breaks down, that's where bad things begin to happen.
Absolutely.
You know, historically, look back, it doesn't take much to see that's happened multiple times over and over again. That when communication ceases, there's then the potential for pretty terrible stuff to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I really want to go back to basics here, man. I feel like the people need to know who we are and how we know each other. Because, I mean, we have so much to talk about. We can get into any subject just like that. And
yeah, definitely.
We can go on so many tangents so quickly because we have so much to talk about.
I already have.
Yeah, and you've already done it. You know what?
It's just the way my brain is wired. Like, I just go off on mad tangents.
And I'm here to rein you the fuck in. So,
exactly.
I mean,
I need that.
I had friendships on the list anyway, so that's fine, man. That's all good. But yeah, so for those wondering, me and Jack have known each other for about, I want to say 4 years now. It was around just maybe even before COVID, I think. We knew each other before COVID, right?
It would have been before lockdown.
Maybe it was around during. Yeah, it would have been around lockdown time. So we're looking about 4.5 years of friendship now. Around that time, obviously, I was, I guess, I don't know. I don't really know. How would you describe me back then, man? Like, I was very hedonistic. I was very gluttonous, lazy to an extent. I mean, not lazy, like as in I didn't work or anything like that, but I just neglected a lot of elements of my life. I think there was a lot of things that I just didn't feel like I had control over, maybe, or I didn't want to put the effort into. I feel like I was a very different person than I am now, and I think that, you know, 4 years, you can do a lot with 4 years, right? So
100%. Yeah, and you definitely have. I wouldn't say that it's difficult for me to say because I didn't ever look at you and view you in a certain way that was negative. It wasn't honestly until, and maybe this was just because of who I am and that I like to talk about things quite on a deep level, and that you're also, it became apparent to me and through our talks just naturally that we would start to kind of bounce off each other and kind of explore like deeper thoughts. And I think it wasn't until then that you would just start talking about this stuff naturally, and you raised with me issues that you were having, which then transitioned into, you know, talking about certain things that you were going through and stuff like that. I think I possibly promoted that just because I was at a point with my mental health and my, you know, my own personal growth that I was very open about any struggle that I was going through.
Yeah.
Because I'd realized, like, I didn't always used to be like that at all. I was very much typical male, shut off my feelings, kind of mask them with an anger response, quite aggressive, to be honest, if I was ever confronted about stuff. And it wasn't until I started to tackle my own mental health issues and come off tablets that I was on, that I had to find new ways of coping, which led me to being a much more open person, because I realized that it was so much easier to, for example, tell somebody I was having a shit day and struggling than it was to pretend I was okay. And that alone there, again, probably going off on a bit of a tangent, but that alone was a massive step in the direction of improving my mental health. Was, when someone asks you, oh, how you doing today? You're all right. And almost your initial response is like, yeah, I'm fine. How are you? The turning point was, for me, was, no, I'm actually having a pretty shit day, to be honest. Like, my mental health's not very good at the moment. And it's like, it's weird because it's the last thing someone wants to hear a lot of the time. And it's difficult to find a genuine person that's going to be then like, oh, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
Because everyone's got their own shit going on. That's fine. I get that. But just going back to, it was a big turning point for me, being more open. And I think that, going back to what you said, because I was at a much more open point in my life when I met you, it kind of led, potentially, not definitely, but potentially it led you to also feeling like, oh, Jack's telling me some real shit here about how his day's not been that great. Now I can tell him, I feel comfortable to tell him now the stuff that's going on with me. And it became like that bouncing back and forward, not like a competition or anything, but it was just a genuine, I think we felt better after we would have a conversation about it, because it's almost, you know what they say, like, get it off your chest. It was that kind of thing, right? We were just getting it off our chest.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm sure that you might be able to resonate with this as well. I feel like the more honest you are in yourself, and the more honesty you project, the more honesty you get back, right, from the world. And I think, obviously,
100%.
You never know who these people are going to be in your life. So obviously we know each other pure chance, right? It was a literally million to one chance. We met each other because I decided to look for a stream one day, which I never do. I don't really watch Twitch streams, and especially at the time, I was streaming so heavily that I just didn't have any time spare to do anything but stream, work, eat. So I was like, it was a million to one chance of us meeting, and it just, I don't know if it was the mentality of both of us then, but we just instantly clicked, right? And we instantly became incredibly honest with each other. Yeah. And it just sort of just almost like snowballed from there, really, didn't it? We just
I can't remember like the exact point at which we started conversing. It would probably have been through Discord. So I'm guessing that this is how it went. You clicked on my stream, you enjoyed the stream, you joined my Discord. And then from that point forward, not overnight, over a fairly long period of time, we just became, more and more active in talking to each other. We streamed together a few times, doing co-op games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we both, really, this is moving forward a few years, we would be very much on and off in contact.
Yeah,
For long periods of time, we would not talk to each other at all.
Yeah.
And we both would keep in touch, probably maybe about streaming, but then it would become about other stuff, like deeper stuff, like deeper issues. Like, regardless of what it was, we would just have conversations about it. And then I think we both kind of stepped away from streaming, or we began to almost, I would say, outgrow it. Definitely from my perspective, I started to, in the end, kind of not enjoy streaming for a lot of different reasons. One of the main reasons is because I felt like I actually couldn't speak my mind or my opinion, and that I started to feel very censored, which was such a weird experience for me. Something I'd never, not experienced before in my life, to be honest. Feeling like I had to portray a certain person while I was streaming so that I didn't upset people. That was a big reason for me kind of stepping away, is that I just felt like I couldn't, I would never actively try to offend anyone. But you could say that Twitch attracts a certain type of person sometimes, or that there seems to be more of a certain type of person that are very pro, I don't even know how to word it.
It's definitely a very left-leaning platform in terms of if we're looking. I mean, the politics of Twitch.
I would word it as it seemed to attract a lot of easily offended people, and the contrast there is that I was quite obviously a comedic streamer, that was just there to entertain. I was definitely not out to offend anybody at any point, but I would say silly
I
things.
feel, yeah, I
But,
feel like to
you
speak
know,
your mind at all in any honest
mm,
capacity, you are going to risk offending people, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And when you go to a place like Twitch or Twitter or any of these places where there are echo chambers, where there are just countless, endless amounts of people validating each other's feelings, emotions, and just pigeonholing thought,
Yeah.
you're gonna easily offend people online. It's
You're
gonna
ruffle some
happen.
feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that's one of the things that I really liked about you. You kind of have this old school, almost like slapstick personality, right? Like
Yeah.
your humor is as crude as it can be. Sometimes it is also some of the most harmless, in my opinion. It's like it is just, as far as I'm concerned, it is just like, it's just silly fucking humor. It's what you enjoy, right? It's
Been any dark intent
yeah.
behind my
No,
humor.
that's
There's
what I
never
mean.
been.
It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like, yeah, sometimes, the things that people are most easily offended by are the most harmless, right? It's
Yeah,
just, yeah,
And
just perspective, I think.
I think also the humor combined with that I'd consider myself like an honest person. So
Mm,
I'm not the kind of person that encounters an issue and can just be told to do something and do it. Like if I've got my own perspective on it, I would like to share it in a constructive way.
mm,
So just one example of that in relation to Twitch was I got to the point where, again, not a massive streamer at all, but I feel like a respectable growth between, I don't know, anywhere between 20 to 40 viewers per stream.
yeah.
And an issue that I encountered there was a lot of people on Twitch that wanted to be referred to by their preferred pronouns, right?
Mm,
Um, which I don't have an issue with people having preferred pronouns. Let's just get that straight. I
mm,
literally do not give a fuck how you want to be addressed and how you prefer to be addressed, and I'll respect that, and I will try my very best to remember,
yeah.
how you want to be referred, right? But my issue was when I've got 20 to 40 people all typing on a stream, dude, I can't even remember people's names. Like,
Yeah.
genuinely, like, if I meet somebody in real life, this is like jujitsu, for example. I meet all these guys at jujitsu, and I get on with them really well, and I might click with them, but I'm still not going to remember their name for like,
Yeah.
I don't know, a few months. That's how bad I am. I find myself, a technique that I use is I create a nickname for them based off their appearance. So like, for example, one dude had slick back. He always had slick back hair, and he had star tattoos on his knees. So I'll start calling him in my head Slickback Star Knees, right? But because I do that, for whatever reason, his name then will remain in my head. So it'll be like, oh, that's Slickback Star Knees, aka Owen. So and that's like my process of remembering stuff. But anyway, going back to the streaming, I struggle to remember people's names, right? So how am I going to remember like 20 plus people's specific pronouns, let alone their names? It just wasn't a feasible thing that I could achieve.
It's not a practical request of someone as well. Like the idea that people aren't going to make mistakes. Yeah, the pronoun thing is, yeah, it's fine. There is nothing wrong with obviously having preferred pronouns.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong.
It's a
with,
you do you kind of thing to me. Like, you do you, and I'll do me. That's fine. I respect it. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously when you start putting impossible sort of expectations on others to, meet your standards in life, instead of having, the compromise, right, in life, like we were talking about, like in relationships. To be able to just be like, well, they got it wrong. They apologized. That's life. Life is about it's about mistakes. It's about coming together and understanding. And I think understanding goes both ways, right? It's the idea that
100%.
We can make those mistakes and be and grow from them, right? And hey man, I don't know. I just
Well,
it's yeah.
in relation to the streaming, the issue that arose was you're not just addressing something once, you're potentially over this, space of however long addressing something multiple times.
Yeah.
And when you're streaming and trying to entertain people and just trying to have fun and interact with chat, and you're not just once being corrected on potentially, let's say, slipping up on someone's pronoun, but it's happening multiple times over the course of, say, several months of streaming, it starts to grain on you. Like, it starts to chip away. It's not that it instantly bothers you, it's that over the course of a period of time, things have the potential to, stack up almost, to eventually you're like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm not writing every single person's name down
Yeah.
and prioritizing this, because a lot of people might not know this, whether or people that have streamed will know this, but streaming's viewed as, oh my god, that's a fucking dream job, dude, you get to play video games. It's not like that. It's actually quite stressful and can be quite challenging. You're getting all your audio levels right, you're getting all your scenes correct, you're making sure everything's running smoothly. There's a lot of like technical stuff to it. And so it's not this kind of amazing fun time that everybody or a lot of people think it is. And these individuals that are doing it professionally and streaming to hundreds and like even thousands of people, that's no small thing at all. That's a full-on job. Like, whether you want to admit that or not, that in my eyes, it's a full-on job.
I see the energy levels of some of these these really, really popular streamers, the amount of energy that they have to put in through their entire stream. And honestly, I don't know if it's because how how sort of introverted I can be, and how much I like to not talk, to be quite honest. There is a part of me that just loves silence and not hearing my own bloody voice sometimes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, first half an hour of let's say a typical stream is like 2.5 hours to 3 hours, maybe, right? Yeah. I'll be good energy for the first half an hour. Anything after that, mate, I'm just sitting here with a fucking gamepad.
You're just mirroring exactly what I was about to say. Like, I start the stream, I'm like, woo! And I'm just, blah, 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 really entertaining. And then after the 2-hour mark, like, you'll just see me, and people would visibly see, me drop. And,
it's just that social battery just absolutely depleting.
Yeah, these, or just mental energy and... I don't know. There's a lot to be said about that alone. Like, but these people that can maintain that kind of high energy for like what some people stream for 8+ hours.
It's insane.
I would look at these people and be like, how? I don't know how you do it. Like, I think that there's a lot to be said there as well for brain chemistry and kind of personality types. Without going too deep into that today, I think there's a lot to be said there in terms of energy exertion and how it affects people differently. But yeah.
It is insane. Yeah, I mean, we haven't really been streaming as much as we were, so we actually took quite a big backseat from streaming, both of us. In fact, it was almost quite parallel, our behavior, right? We sort of, I guess, realized that we were almost putting too much focus on our streams, and we were letting that affect our psyches quite heavily. The numbers would go up and down, and we were putting a lot of our value as people into our streams, and the numbers that we would see, the amount of donos, maybe the amount of subs, all these numbers, right?
100%, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'd be comparing myself to other streamers. I'd be looking to see how much, how many bits and subs people have got. Anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's like the currency for Twitch, like it's your income essentially. So I'd be looking at that, and when I would get into my own head, it'd be like, oh, what, this month's been terrible. But then there would also be the opposite. There would be the real highs, like where I'd make like it's sometimes $1,000 a month, which in my eyes, from being able to, when it was a fun thing for me, playing video games, interacting with a community, and having fun and making money off it was really rewarding at times.
Quite addictive,
But
almost. Like it almost became quite a drug. Yeah.
Almost like the highs were high, right? But then the lows would, you know, it was not good. So, but yeah, like going back to what you said, we both kind of stepped away at a similar time, and I think to start focusing on careers, I would say to start focusing on other stuff.
And we did. Me, we both ended up in,
and we've achieved careers, that now. Yeah, that's crazy, actually. Yeah. So again, for anyone that doesn't know, I stepped back and started my studies in counseling, and I also started my studies in fitness. And I'm now a qualified personal trainer working out of gyms. Over the last 6 months, I'd say I've built a pretty sturdy client base, which I honestly wasn't expecting, and I'm doing well income-wise. And then Dave, you take it from there with what you were kind of exploring.
Yeah, so on stream, essentially, I would self-teach programming. I would, from the very foundations of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I basically just had learning streams. So I used my platform to essentially document my my learning journey for programming and development, and that obviously put me in a couple of contacts, which essentially landed me a junior position as a web developer. So that's what I'm currently doing. I've been in this position for 9 months now, I think it's coming up to. And it's an absolute far cry from what I was doing previously. I was part-time administrative work. It was mundane and boring.
Yeah, you didn't like that at all, did you?
No, sir.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you were. You had. Yeah, I was just thinking back. You were having a rough time with where you were working, and it was creating you a lot of anxiety, from what I remember.
It had a very undesirable power structure, let's say.
Yeah.
So
you were almost stuck in that. You were stuck in that. You stuck in the age-old trap of what I know full well many people are stuck in. I've got a job. It's getting me money.
Yeah.
I'm kind of comfortable financially. I don't like the job necessarily, but I fear leaving it because I don't know what's beyond this job or whether I can secure something as good for me income-wise. And also, it's scary to leave my comfort zone. I feel like that's on, just a rough overview where you were stuck, where you were
at. I was comfortably numb and depressed is what I was, mate. Yeah.
Very, very much like I would describe it. The way I view it is, I don't know if you've ever seen the film Wanted.
No.
Or similar kind of situation, like The Matrix, right? Where
here we go.
Everyone knows The Matrix. That's a better reference. The only reason I said Wanted is because there's a very specific scene in it, and I'll show you this like after we've done all this. A very specific scene where he just kind of has enough and completely loses his shit and walks out of the office job, which is just a great scene. But a better point of reference would be The Matrix. You know, he's just in an office job, right? He's just you're just working his day-to-day life thinking surely there must be more to life than this.
It's a better analogy as well, because Neo was a programmer as well,
of course. And also that film is pretty much about, in my eyes, a lot of it is about self-awareness and going down the rabbit hole of self-awareness, which is interesting. When I never looked at it in that way before, because I just saw it as a really cool action film when I was younger, but when you rewatch it when you're older, it strikes so many different chords with you in terms of like society and working a 9-to-5 job and just being stuck in something that just doesn't quite scratch the itch, but at the same time, it's scary to explore the rabbit hole, of course, that he goes down in the film.
Yeah, and it definitely obviously it was a hard job to escape out of. Anything that you do for long periods of time, that you really build a familiarity with, like I did with my previous role. I built up in the NHS specifically, the longer you're there, the more leave you get as well. So I had accumulated almost a decade's worth of benefits in that role as well. So not only was I part-time earning quite a decent hourly wage.
Mm.
I was also getting quite a lot of leave as well. So I was it was it was just one of them. It became a case of, well, how can I do as little as possible in this role whilst also doing my role? I was like, at this point, I might as well just not work and be on benefits, because like I'm not, like, I was obviously doing my job. Let's get that. I just want to get that straight before we continue.
Yeah.
I was doing my bloody job, right? I was
You're
doing my role,
the minimum.
but I was also in an office by myself for 3 days a week, wondering how the fuck do I get out of this situation? There's got to be more to my life.
To like add a bit of like a humorous tone to it, you were very much in the territory.
Because I was talking to you about it as well this whole time. I was in discussions with you about how, like, what am I doing, man? Like, around this time.
You were very much in the territory of when can I next take a prolonged 10-minute shit and just scroll on the toilet because I don't want to be here. And like, I swear that will echo throughout kind of society, that there's a lot of people that are living that life where they're just like, I'm going to go to the toilet and just sit there for as long as possible, because no one's going to come in and kick down the door and say, hey, back to work. Like, if they think I'm having a shit.
I was left to my own devices very, very often.
I
just got work as and when I was given it. It was mainly just office-based duties, and as I say, I was doing it for over a decade, so I could pretty much coast my way through it and do it to a really high standard. So it was, and I think that was the problem. It was the same 7 tasks day in, day out. I say day in, day out. I was doing it 3 days a week, but I think that's when you really know you don't like a job, is when you're doing it part-time, and even that feels soul-destroying.
It's too much,
Now I'm full-time. For contrast, obviously, I'm full-time now, 5 days a week. You know, I've got, there's a lot more responsibility, an infinite amount more duties, a lot more to learn, and I feel so much more fulfilled than I ever was in that previous role.
I think you've also developed over time, especially the last few months, a healthy work-life balance in terms of doing things, one example, your rock climbing, that benefit you and set you mentally ready. Doing something physical because you know that you're also work-wise, you're going to be sitting down doing something mentally draining. So balancing something physically draining with something mentally draining, like, kind of evens out the playing field, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that was it. It was when you get into those pits of just, what am I doing? And you really start trying to push your life in other ways, everything else seems to follow it. And I found that was the case for me. Once I started becoming more social, or at least trying to become more social, it was very difficult for me, really, because, as I say, I was in an office by myself, wasn't really socializing a lot, wasn't really pushing myself to build friendships outside of stream, I guess, outside of the cyberspace. Once I started to really try and work on who I was as a person, a lot of things started to follow with that. I started understanding who I was a lot more. What I liked and didn't like. These seem such not mundane, but such simple things, but they often can shape our entire lives. Just true, like, understanding really fundamental things about what you like and dislike and where you want to actually be. And that was a really difficult thing for me, I think.
Yeah.
Especially because I spent a lot of time masking. I spent a lot of time pretending to be certain people and trying to fit into certain boxes because I wanted to be perceived a certain way. That was a big problem. And I still, sometimes, I really want, like, I get into these mindsets, man, about, am I still trying to fit myself in a particular box? Am I truly living authentically myself? And I get a little, self-aware with that sometimes. I'm like, am I listening to the music I listen to because I enjoy it? Or is it just really cool and trendy right now? Am I,
definitely.
am I hanging around with certain people because I think they're cool and they're going to boost myself? Like, just different things like this. Like, am I like, it seems so simple. Like you'd think we just know, but you really have to step back and actually
No, you
think
got to
where
look
it,
at these things.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to look at
where
these
is the
things.
where is
Yeah.
the motivation for a lot of what I do in my life coming from? And is
Yeah,
it truly serving me and my growth as a person? And obviously allowing me to grow and benefit the individuals around me, because I think that's also a huge point, isn't it? Like we're not just growing for ourselves, we're growing for the people that love us around us and
Yeah,
who care for us,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, well, depending what your reasons are for it, everyone's gonna have different reasons for growth. But I feel like you get to a certain point where you realize that if you work on yourself and improve yourself, it kind of penetrates into just all other aspects of your life and the people surrounding you, and it will do one of two things really in relation to people that you love and care about, right? So
Mm.
this is also the obstacle of growth, you could say, is that when you're changing and growing as a person, as an individual, um unfortunately sometimes the people
Yeah.
around you that you love and you consider the closest to you can actually not like that you're growing and changing. And that's where you have to really like assess everything and everyone in your life. And you
Yeah.
almost start to be like, does this person actually benefit me? Um, and that's or do they have a more negative impact on your life? And
Yeah.
that's a scary point of growth, because it's where you can realize some people are trying to, and I'm not like, people don't do this purposely all the time. I'm not saying it's because anyone's evil or
Mm.
they want to not see you progress, but sometimes people want you to stay the same because it keeps them in their personal comfort zone as well. And it makes them feel uncomfortable when they see you doing things to step outside of your comfort zone, but they still they're not at that point where they can. And that's where you might encounter someone um kind of disputing what you're doing. And you have to make tough decisions then. Are they actually healthy for me now? Can I continue to have this person in my life and still grow? Or are they going to constantly try and hold me back? Not necessarily purposefully,
Mm.
but that they might not even be aware that they're doing it. And
Yeah.
that's where that can be a real tricky um turning point in the path of looking to improve yourself and looking for personal growth,
So one
I
thing
think.
I would like to obviously expand on that really. The idea of
Mm.
change in itself is terribly scary. In fact, change just as the the concept of change, there is nothing inherently attractive about it, right? It's the other side of it that I find is obviously it's the reward, isn't it? It's what comes after change. It's the growth that happens at the other end of change,
Absolutely.
right?
And here's sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it, man.
Before I forget this, here brings in the main issue with kind of modern day social media and things like that,
Mm.
right? We all see and witness the finished product, which is hella motivational, man. You
Mm.
see some dude that's built an incredible physique. You see some fucking rock climber that's scaling incredible routes. What you don't ever see, or I'd say it's at a point where it's a bit getting better. It is getting better from certain influencers, but what you tend to not see is the bloody struggle between that and the finished product. You don't see all of the failings that they've had to go through to get to where they are now. And that's the thing about growth. It's really essential. The failing part is the most important part of growth. The part where you feel terrible, or where you're scared, where you're anxious, where you don't want to do something, is the single most important part of the growth, because it's going through that hardship that overcomes, that you overcome and then get to the point that we then see on social media,
Yeah.
like, and that's whether
Yeah.
you're like a bodybuilder, a professional rock climber, a professional skateboarder, anything, an artist, anything that's kind of creative. We don't tend to see all of the failings,
Mm.
but we see the finished products, and then we get here's the real catch, right? So we see this, we take in this media, we see this amazing physique, we see this skater doing an absolutely awesome trick and landing it. We then get motivated by that, right?
Mm.
We're like, shit, okay, dude, I want to build muscle. I want to get shredded, whatever the goal is. I want to be an amazing rock climber. We see that, we get motivated, then we go and do it, right? Potentially we go and try it for the first time and we're absolutely shit, right? Because we've never done it before. Of course, we're not going to be great at it.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, well, I'm crap at it. I'm never going to do it again. And it's like, wait, how are you ever going to, grow? How are you ever going to get to where you want to be? How are you ever going to get better if you've just gone once and then said, I'm bad? Of course you're bad. It's through the repetition and more essentially the doing things when you're not motivated. Going back to what I was saying kind of when we first started talking, it's in the repetition and doing things when you are not motivated, when you don't want to do them, that eventually through time and consistency gets you that end result that you see on social media. So as far as I'm concerned, like, although social media glorifies the end product, what would be more interesting to see was these people actually in the failures, seeing the failures that they've had to get to that end goal. Because I think it would give people a more healthy perspective, so that when they do get motivated by the end product and that they go to try it themselves, they can remember, but this person that I'm motivated by, remember that they had a lot of failings before they got here. So it doesn't matter that I'm bad now. All I need to do is just keep coming back and keep, trying to do something and keep learning. And eventually you're going to improve. There's no which way about it. You're going to improve if you keep trying at something.
It's a good point that you bring up, really, because what I've noticed, especially as it pertains to the social media aspect of things, is that there seems to be almost like a war of two types of content at the moment. And what I've noticed is that there is a resurgence of old school, undoctored, uncut, raw content. The most raw, real, and authentic content you could imagine. I've seen some of these lifestyle vlogs.
Yeah.
And they are just that. It's an hour of just someone doing next to nothing and just living, right?
Yeah.
And just walking a street, having a little natter. It's to some, to a certain demographic of, or a certain generation these days, that might not be so appealing. Or maybe it is. That's the thing. I think that where there is all this hyper dopamine infused short form content, there is also a real cry at the moment for content and for real things, things that aren't just preying on your dopamine. And I think that's what a lot of this content does. It's why we don't see the process, because the process doesn't give us that rush of motivation, dopamine, and just the sort of the attention, right? Because it's like, let's take two types of content, for instance. We've got a short form clip of an 18-year-old flexing, you know what I mean? And he's in just impeccable physical form, right? And it's 20 seconds long and he's in amazing shape. And it's just a montage of a quick workout. And then you've got another video of him basically explaining his whole journey for about 30 minutes, right? There's definitely gonna, you know what I mean?
Or a day in the life of would put it into perspective for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Dude, let me tell you what that guy's doing in between these exciting workouts. He's probably, if he's like shredded ripped, he's most likely weighing out his food every single meal. He's, planning his meals for the whole day and putting in Tupperware and stuff like that. He's, working out, I don't know, 4
but
or
Jack,
5
people
times
don't want to see it.
Nobody
they want to see him
that. To be fair, there are a lot of content creators that do. But but like
that's it.
You see, when you see in the end product, and then that does that breed this kind of generation of I want it now. I want it now.
It's
and
the
I'm not
Matrix,
willing to
Jack.
work for it.
It's the Matrix. It's the idea that we can watch a 20-second clip and think that is life, or we can see an hour's worth of authentic, this is how I got here kind of content, right? Behind the veil.
The realistic thing there is, or like the message to take away from that is that life's not always fun and like high energy and exciting. Like it's just fluctuations, you know. Yeah, there's the high times, the great times, and there's the low times as well. And then there's just the media called day-to-day stuff. And a lot of it is, you know, the day-to-day stuff.
I think
The
there
in
is.
between.
I think the day-to-day stuff's vastly underrated, though, Jack. I think it really is,
because that is what essentially, you know, equates to the end result, especially in terms of like, you know, the physique or whatever. Is the repetition, the day-to-day. You know what you're doing from every hour that builds up to, you know, the final kind of product that you see on social media or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's a nice little tangent, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I like that.
It was. Of course, it was.
Of course, it was.
There'll be many tangents.
Of course.
But I mean, going back, what did we start on? We started on why has it taken us so long to get to a point where we're actually even recording something and it's not even been put out yet. Will it ever get put out? We don't know, Dave. It might not. Who knows? But why has it taken us so long? Because the thought of it is often more exciting than the actual doing, right?
I love that.
We've had to assign time. For example, I've been up since 5:30 this morning. Yeah. I've been training, you know, covered 3 gym classes, group classes. I've then had 2 PT clients. I've then not eaten any food until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I've come home, decided to mow the lawn. I've done a lot of stuff before we've jumped onto the PC and had this conversation. And I'd be lying if I said to you that when I remembered that we were going to do this, I'd be lying if I said I was motivated to do it. I wasn't. I was like, right, what? I knew I was still going to do it because I'm at that point where I can. And I know that I don't need motivation. So I don't look for motivation anymore. If I want to do something, I just do it. But again, like when you've been either, you know, at something all day or you've been working, it definitely gets more and more difficult to then slot something in, you know, on top of that. So yeah, that I guess that answers why it's taken us so long. Is just day-to-day life and stuff comes up, and before you know it, it's got away from you. Because let's be honest, this isn't an absolute priority for both of us in terms of our whole life goals and stuff. It's something that we want to do, but it often has gone to the sidelines because you're busy, I'm busy, we've both got our own stuff going on.
Well, it's like you say, we've like almost. It's the 20-second clip. We've just gotten it. We've kind of, I guess, not necessarily, maybe even romanticized the idea of being, you know, like the idea of something, as you say, is so much more enjoyable than the idea of having to sit down and put the work into it, right? Like
exactly
the idea of I have to put more effort into doing something and I don't just get instant gratification from it. That's insane, Jack.
The other funny thing is that whatever we put out, the first 20 seconds of whatever the intro of the video is has to be the most catchy and enticing to make people go, ooh, I'm going to watch this because something interesting is going to happen. Because if something interesting doesn't happen within the first 20 seconds, no one's ever going to watch this, Dave.
No, they're not.
It would be just, but I don't care, man. I've enjoyed doing this. I would happily keep putting out video after video after video and get no views because when we talk about this stuff, it elevates my energy so much.
Yeah, like, I feel really invigorated.
I feel passionate. I like having these discussions, dude. I love the more kind of just in depth that I can go into something, the more I enjoy it. Because again, day-to-day life, what is it? You see, like, for example, someone walks into the gym and it's like the old, and everyone will know this watching. Hey, how are you? Yeah, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's the most fucking default NPC conversation I've ever had in my life. I might as well just say, hey, fuck you. Let's go. Let's work out. I don't care. That's what that means. You know, that's what the translation of that is. Like, hi, how are you? Oh, I don't really care, but yeah, let's just get to work with whatever we're doing. You know, obviously beyond that point, you start talking to them, having actual interactions, but that initial, hey, how are you? It's so fucking pointless, man. And but people will have that day to day in their like office jobs and other jobs. It's just such
you know what's crazy as well? There are certain cultures, Japan. I find it so telling actually. There are cultures, Japan being one of them, that don't don't do this as a formality. There is there is the idea of asking someone how they are as a formality when saying hello to someone, you know, like obviously seeing someone for the first time in a particular day, it's foreign to them. They consider it weird. Like, why are you asking how I am?
So
saw me the other day.
Instead?
They get on with their fucking day. They're like, yo, let's go. Let's do our day. You know what I mean?
Let's do it. I like that, actually.
Yeah.
It's game time. Let's do what we got to do.
Yeah.
We'll talk shit later.
like they're just brutally honest, man. They just
and it is funny actually in terms of like what we do with the hey, how are you? Because I shit you not, this happened not today but yesterday. So I said hi to someone. I didn't say anything other than hi, and they said, yeah, I'm all right. How are you doing? So they literally default jumped to it. I didn't even ask how they were. I just said hi, and they went, yeah, I'm fine, thanks. How are you doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's almost like a behavior.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Not really. Our culture's, and that's the problem, I think, because it takes away, I think, from what could be genuinely meaningful ways of talking to each other, right? Because
was about to say, yeah, 100%.
We're almost like fed up of it to an extent. Like,
because if somebody said, hi, how are you? And you were like, actually.
No, that's it. It's like,
actually, they're like, oh shit. They're like, shit, this is, and they're not ready for it. They're like, what? And you're like, well, you know, this happened. And I'm actually, I'm not feeling great. And they're like, oh, fuck. Like, you can tell, like, some people will be like, oh, come, let's have a chat about it. You know, come and sit down. Dude, that's the person you want in your life. The person that's genuinely going to have time to say, are you okay? And they're like genuinely concerned and they'll have a chat with you. But a lot of people,
we're like that. Just sorry to interrupt.
We will. No, it's fine.
Friendship.
Yeah, we will. We'll be like, right, cool. Let's dig into it then, man. Something fucking interesting is happening for a change. You've got some shit to sort out. Let's fucking unravel it, dude. I'm here. Let's do it. And we're about that. We love that. But you know, if you spring that on other people, they're like, oh, okay, I'm not really interested, and that's fine. Like, because we've all got our own shit going on. But you can see how people's mental health can deteriorate from that. So they might, for the first time, if someone anyone watching this, if anybody ever, when you say hi, how are you, and they're like, oh, actually I'm not well, please take the time to sit down with them and like give them attention, because that's a bit of a cry for help there, right? Or it's at least something's going on that they clearly need to talk about, right? You can see how if you don't take the time to just check in with them, how their mental health can then deteriorate more and more, because then they're like, oh, well, I tried to reach out, but no one's interested.
Yeah, could I just, I was about to say, could I just add on to that actually quick, Jack? Because I find that we seem to be in the West, or at least in England, what I've noticed is that we seem to have this society of people that really like to talk about mental health in the sense that we're promoting mental health, or at least people, I don't know, almost, it seems to be almost cool to promote good mental health, but then not practice it, right? So the 100%. Idea, like what I've, 100%. It's the idea that people seem to be all about positive mental health reinforcement and like promoting it on the socials and men need to talk more and all this, but then when it actually comes to coming off the socials and actually practicing that in the world, it seems to be more of just a social rodeo. Yeah,
exactly. Like, men need to talk more, and then let's get real. A guy sits down with you, like, to be honest, I feel suicidal. I was thinking about taking my. Not many people know how to deal with that, right?
No,
that's and to be fair to anyone, that is some difficult stuff to.
It's not easy
to tackle, but at the same time, if your response is, oh, okay, and you just don't have the tools to deal with that, then what's the fucking point in promoting women's, mental health if you then don't have the tools to back that up?
And that's not to say
it's
that
just become a trend, right? It's just it has become a trend.
Yeah, I think that's obviously what I'm trying to get at, really. I'm not trying to obviously take some sort of grand stance on it. I would never want anyone to think that we shouldn't be promoting, obviously, on the socials. But I think that you also need to practice what you preach, quite literally. If you're going, if people are going to be mental health advocates, they also need to apply that to who they are and how they go about understanding the common man or fellow man, right? Or woman, right? Like it's
and also not just a lot of things are diminished, like, or they're like, oh, you haven't got problems. Yeah, that's nothing compared to this. You can't compare. It's the old saying of like, you talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? Yeah. So we're talking the talk about promoting men's mental health, women's mental health.
Yeah.
But can we walk the walk? Can we back it up? Have you been through something that's enabled you to gain knowledge to where you have a deeper understanding? Again, it kind of falls back to, you can understand something from a certain level, but you can't understand something fully until you've actually lived it.
Empathize.
So I could support, for example, men's mental health. But if I'd never had or never felt like I'd been through any struggle, how can I really truly understand what's going on? It's like, it's lived experience. So when we say lived experience, that's why it's so important. Because there's for example, I could watch thousands of videos on Muay Thai, right? And become really educated about it and know the techniques in terms of explaining them or visually and stuff like that. But until you've actually practiced yourself the techniques, you would find it hard to verbally translate them to someone.
Same with me, man.
Through doing the actual movement. Same with weightlifting or any rock climbing, whatever.
Programming, dude. It's one of the biggest problems actually in programming is that people get into something called tutorial hell, where they're taking in all this content, all these tutorials, but they're not actually applying it, right?
Not physically.
Not actually putting the knowledge to an actual practical project. And it's
there we go. Yeah, that's the one.
It's the exact same thing, man.
There is, I guess, two sides to education. There's the learning it kind of visually and understanding it, and then there's the practical appliance, which I'm probably just repeating what you've said, but I was just trying to get it straight in my own head. And this will be a known thing, right?
Absolutely.
On the wider spectrum, but also a lot of people won't know this, or they do know it, but they don't put it into practice, kind of thing, right?
And you know why I think that is? I think, and for me anyway, it's definitely been the case. It's a fear of failure, right? It's like the idea that, okay, in order to gain proper experience, life experience, programming experience, gym experience, it's the idea that I'm actually probably not going to be perfect at it first time around.
Dude, it's the thing. This is the funny thing, right? And I don't think I've not seen it anywhere more commonly displayed than in the martial arts world, in terms of like, you'll see like a clip of a UFC fight or someone will beat someone else, and then you look at the comments and there's literally hundreds of these so-called experts saying, oh, he should have done this, he should have done that, or people saying, I don't know, for example, like a common one is Brazilian jiu-jitsu wouldn't work on the streets. And it's like, you just want these people to go into a gym and just the ones that have never stepped foot in a gym or done any martial arts but are still trying to speak as if they've got something to say of relevance. I would love for them to just step into a gym to realize how quickly these dudes can tangle you up and get you into something deadly. Now, I understand the perspective of that wouldn't work on the streets if someone had a knife, of course. But they then act like these people are stupid, like as if they wouldn't know that if somebody pulled a knife on me on the street, I'm not going to try and wrestle them to the floor because they're going to have stabbed me 20 times in the side before anything's even happened. And obviously the best case scenario in terms of a knife, logically, is turn around and run away, because you're going to get cut in a fight with a knife, no matter how good you are, right?
Going into martial arts and the discipline behind martial arts is, I would love to get into that as a whole episode, to be honest, man. I feel like you'd have a lot of knowledge and information to give to people in regards to...
there's a lot of interest just there. But again, I kind of fear it, to be honest, Dave, because I would speak from my perspective of someone who's done, I don't know, a totally combined. I've done like Muay Thai / striking, because Muay Thai, although everybody's like, Muay Thai is the best basis for striking because you're utilizing all of your body's weapons. Yes, okay. But still, when you transfer over to mixed martial arts, so MMA, cage fighting, Muay Thai isn't the best. You have to actually alter what's going on, because you've got the threat of wrestling and people taking you down. So you can't use a traditional Muay Thai stance in wrestling. And going back to what I was saying, like, my fear is that people would assume that just because I'm talking about it and having an opinion that I think I'm some kind of expert. I do not whatsoever think I'm any kind of expert on any martial arts. Yes, I've studied not studied, I've practiced Muay Thai for probably a combined of like 5 or 6 years. And I've done jiu-jitsu for maybe a year and a half, mixed with like some wrestling stuff. But by no means would I ever in my whole life class myself as being an expert on any of it, because it's just so complex. And even when someone's for example, a black belt in a discipline, it doesn't necessarily mean they're good at it. Again, they could have the learned knowledge and they've ticked all the boxes to pass, but that doesn't mean you stop there. There's still so much knowledge to be gained from it. It's a never ending thing, just the same as what you do, like rock climbing, just the same as anything. You never stop learning.
I think that's a common misconception, though, isn't it? It's the idea that just because we like to talk about something doesn't automatically make us an expert on a thing, which 100%. I think it's because maybe, obviously, if you're consuming content, it's almost like a slight power structure, maybe. Like, we're giving you content, we're providing you with a thing that puts us at a certain place, and you're consuming our content, which is bullshit, by the way. It is complete bullshit. Like the idea that whoever might be watching this is somehow beneath us because they're consuming our content. I've always thought this, actually.
Absolutely not, no.
I've always, it's something I've wondered, really. It's the idea that just because we have a camera and microphones makes us somehow better. I think some people will go.
I think some people probably do feel like that, though, that have got like podcasts, and you can see how it gets to the ego, especially if you've got hundreds of thousands of followers, right? You could get to the point where you kind of believe anything that you say. But the thing is as well, going back to like martial arts, is so like, for example, I saw like some short technique video the other day, and it was kind of more taekwondo based, to be honest. And then in the comments it was like, that would never work, like flat out just saying it would never work at all. But the thing is, within the moves that he did like a foot sweep, like a foot drag, which basically is to off center your opponents. And I know from practical experience that will work. This particular move that he did will work if you get it correct. Now, it looks like it wouldn't, and I've got to admit, it takes a lot of timing to get it correct. But I know it works because this specific move that he did, I shit you not, I was trying it for months on people before I actually managed to hit it on someone correctly. And that there's a lot to be said about that, right? Because somebody in the comments could be saying that would never work. And it might be that they're saying that again, going back to what we were saying before, that they tried it once and it didn't work. So they then take the opinion that it flat out doesn't work ever. Whereas I'm the persistent bastard that will keep trying it. And like I said, with this particular foot sweep, I tried it so many times, never hit it once, right? Then in one session, I hit it on like 4 separate people successfully, including people that had like 20 plus kg on me weight-wise. And I realized that it was all in the timing of when they're stepping forward, you've literally got a split second where you can hook their foot. And if you get it right, it will completely take them off balance, which then, you know, if you're off balance in a fight, that's really not a good thing. Like one of the first things you're taught in like boxing and stuff like that is never like cross your feet over, because you're then, you know, easily toppled over. So I knew from experience it worked, but you can see how somebody with that, let's not say the incorrect mentality, but somebody with a different mindset might try that once, it doesn't work. So then they're on social media like, no, that's bullshit, that doesn't work. And it's like, come on. You should have to be certified to practice something 1,000 times. What's Bruce Lee's famous saying? Something about not fearing the man that's practiced loads of different kicks, but the man that he fears the man that's practiced one single kick 1,000 times. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying here, is it's all in the repetition. And that things, even though you might think they don't work because you've tried them once or twice, the person that's tried it 1,000 times might well be able to pull that move off.
I can't wait to watch Bruce Lee TikToks after this. Can't wait.
That's a complete tangent there, but
no, it's great, man.
There's so much to be said for the kind of toxicity within martial arts communities, and it's really sad, to be honest. It really is, like, because some dude that's practicing something will put up a video of them, and And instantly you've got like potentially thousands of people saying, you're doing that wrong. Keep your guard up. You've got to do this. No, you're not doing that right. Instead of saying, hey, well done, man. Well done for like
Yeah.
trying to do something, right?
It comes from people's just innate insecurities around and comparison, right? It's insecurity and comparison. So, it's you see it in climbing as well, mate. Like it's not. I wouldn't say it's probably as much. I think people's egos get checked a lot, especially at climbing gyms, because it is more so about respecting each other. And I'm not saying that. I mean, I know that martial arts are literally all about respect.
No, I was just going to say, I think there's a silent. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think there's a silent confidence in both things like martial arts and rock climbing. There's a silent confidence, right? When you see somebody that isn't chatting shit, they're just there to train and they're just really good at what they're doing. As soon as someone sees that, there's kind of a level of respect that comes with it.
Yeah, I think so.
That they wouldn't openly say.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in real life, does it? That's a weird thing, right? Or it doesn't commonly happen. Social media, criticism.
Yeah.
Real life, it doesn't happen so much.
So there's no consequence. You don't have to actually, you don't have to, I guess, deal with the repercussions of having to say these words, man. You don't have to.
Do you know what? I'm not going to mention the names of the people in the podcast we were watching the other day, but they specifically mentioned you're not going to get smacked in the face over the internet, but there's potential for violence. Worst case scenario, obviously, when you're face to face with someone and say that wouldn't work on the streets, bro, or that, or you shit, dude, your form's crap. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you see some really negative stuff written online that flat out, like nobody would really say IRL, or very, very fucking rarely would it happen.
It's just a way for people that are insecure and projecting to obviously put that animosity somewhere, that negativity to a place. And it's really sad, to be honest, man, because at the end of the day, it's the only thing that it tells me when someone's projecting like that, when they're saying negative things in comments, the only thing that it's telling me is that these people are either deeply insecure, deeply hurt, angry, unhappy. It's just a plethora of negative connotations when I see these things, and I kind of feel sad, mate. It makes me sad. I'm like, dude, there's so much going on in life right now. There's so much stuff that you could be doing, experiencing.
Don't fixate on this.
This ain't nothing. This ain't nothing. Let this person, big them up. They're doing their thing. Go out and do your thing, man.
I would like to say that it was more often than not that I go on to a video of someone that's starting out, whatever it is, whether it's martial arts or anything like that. And I'd like to say that I go on it and see people really encouraging them. That would be really nice.
Should we do this as a test, Jack? Should we do some martial art videos of me just absolutely buggering up and do it as an experiment?
Dude, honestly, like I put out a video. I started putting like a few TikTok things out of me hitting the bag and stuff, and they were like got a fair amount of likes, but the one comment, and I'm pretty sure that this was like a negative comment, was check out those legs though, as in like chicken legs, right? Because I've not got massive legs or anything.
You are beautiful. Don't let those chicken legs define you.
But it goes to show what we were talking about, right? Is that you put something out there and it's kind of like
people love
scary
to hate, man.
Because it's like, people like to put people down.
Had the exact same experiences in TikToks as well, man. Like the odd things that I would do for stream, or maybe just odd bits and bobs that I just put out there. People like it. It's. I would like to say that it's never gotten to me, or it's not made me upset in the moment.
Very easily.
I don't tend to ruminate or fixate on it for more than however long I'm looking at it. It's not like I carry it. Like I can't even recall what people have said to me, to be quite honest. But the idea that it just doesn't make you a bit like, oh, that's kind of mean. Didn't like that.
Here's a funny thing that you didn't actually know, and I don't think anyone does, is I actually made a TikTok account at one point. This is going back maybe a year and a half,
Mm.
and it was basically mental health focused, and it was just me and maybe like not even a minute long videos, but just talking snippets of about mental health stuff or how to overcome anxiety and my opinions and stuff on it.
Mm.
And I put out a fair few videos and because of certain things I was saying and my views on what anxiety is, got quite a few like negative responses.
Mm.
I ended up stopping doing it, but the content I was putting out was good. But I
Hmm.
tried to, once I replied to them in a rational way and explained my point of view, they never had anything to counteract it with. But it's almost like people jump to conclusions.
I think
Like,
it comes down to people being so steadfast in their own beliefs and what they perceive the things
yeah,
that you're talking about
I mean, I
in
must
their own
admit
way, right?
it was a provoking statement, the one that was prior to you. It was it started off along the lines of anxiety is just energy, which I do, that I do wholeheartedly believe this, but it
Everything is
was
just energy. That's not
yeah,
a controversial statement. It
but
is just a form of energy for sure.
it was anxiety is just energy, and that
Yeah.
it is the mind that chooses whether that
Mm.
turns into a negative energy or a
Mm.
positive energy. It was
Yeah.
something as simple as that. I wasn't even really that triggering, but obviously a lot of people were like, how dare you, downplay my anxiety? And I was like, pump the brakes a minute. Like, what you don't realize here is that the person that's saying these lines is somebody that was literally housebound at one point because
Mm.
they were that anxious. So again, you can
We all
jump
have
to
our
such
experiences,
conclusions.
right?
Yeah.
This is your experience. This is how you've taken. Everything is perception, right? When it comes to our emotions, how we treat them and how we nurture them, and think about them, ultimately decides how we use them and utilize them in our lives, right? Just like you said, it's energy. So how are we going to treat that energy? How are we going to nurture it? And I think
also. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, so I think for a long time, and you taught me this, to be honest, was the idea that we can either let something like anxiety be fuel for incredibly detrimental and hurtful things,
Yeah.
or we can use it to better ourselves and the world around us and improve our lives. And that's what I did, right? I went to gym. I started being more social. I used it to make my life more uncomfortable in the most beautiful way possible, right? I started going on walks more. I was housebound as well, as you well know, I was incredibly housebound. And it's still something I kind of have to really look at because I'm a fully remote worker. So it's something that I really do need to keep on top of. But mate, just obviously throwing out there, I was completely housebound last year, pretty much at the end of last year, December, start of this year, because I was coming off my antidepressants, or at least I was reducing them. I'm on. Yeah. And obviously
that was a big turning point for you.
I was going through withdrawals. I'd been on them for over 10 years. So now I take one every other day, which in itself is a huge step in the right direction for me. But I was sending you voice notes every single day, wasn't I? And
100%. And you know what? Like, it honestly, just straight up truth here, it wouldn't have mattered if I listened to a lot of them or not, because I feel like those voice notes, looking back, you weren't necessarily talking to me, mate. You were talking to yourself, and you were offloading in terms of those voice notes that you were sending to me were actually your way of processing all of that you were going through. And it was such a healthy thing. Like, I was loving it, mate. I was like, I would like be listening to your voice notes and hearing you either on a high or being like, or being like really like, just down in the dumps. But I would often like open it. I would just be kind of smiling and giggling to myself, because I would be like, Dave is fucking processing shit here. Dave is like, Dave doesn't even know what he's doing right now, but I know that what Dave's doing right now is extremely good for him. And that I knew when I was listening to him that you were going to be in such a different place to where you are now. And again, nobody watching this or listening to it can even begin to know how different you are now. But you essentially, to kind of round it up, you've gone from somebody that didn't really ever leave your house to somebody that, a few months ago, or maybe a year ago now, drove an hour plus to me to do, not just to hang out, but to step inside a martial arts gym and do a striking class for the first time in their life. Like
Mm.
anyone with anxiety or who struggles to do new things or gets nervous can straight away understand how big that is to go
Yeah.
from literally not leaving your house very often to driving nearly 2 hours to then do a martial arts class and hang out is a huge thing. And then from there, it's not like it was just a one-off. We've, met up 2 or 3 times since then as well.
Yep.
I came down to you. We did some rock climbing. And then you came again recently and stayed over, which was also a huge thing because
huge.
that was something that provoked like anxiety in you in terms of,
Absolutely, yeah.
you've been used to staying in the same bed for like years and years. It's like a huge thing,
Yeah.
staying somewhere else and being away from home for like it wasn't even just a night, was it? Because you had your business trip. So it was like maybe 3 or 4 straight nights that you weren't at home.
It was a huge. It was a monumental week for me, and that was incredible. That was recently for those watching. That was a month ago now, maybe less than that potentially. Yeah, so that was a massive milestone for me. But it's just that, isn't it, Jack? It's these incremental pushes to being better each day that add up to
the overall picture. Yeah.
Just living your best fucking life, to be quite honest. Like,
yeah, and I think maybe there's the kind of closing message to anybody watching this is that don't look for motivation to do things. If you know deep down that you want to do something, don't look for the motivation, just do it. It's almost like you've got to develop the mindset, or I like to call it the switch. You've got to develop the switch where instead of, let's say, for example, I want to go to the gym and train. I know that the gym is healthy for me. I know that it balances out my mental health. And I know that it's going to set me up for the rest of the day in a positive way if I train in the morning. So sometimes what might have happened in the past with me is that before I get my trainers on to go to the gym, I'm like, the little voice starts in my head and it's like, oh, you trained like 2 or 3 days ago. You could miss today and just train on Friday. And that like sets off a dialogue. Now, what I would encourage people to do and what I did was learn to stop the dialogue full stop. Okay. So you almost cut off the little devil on your shoulder, right? So the only thing that you need to know is that the gym's good for you. Any other thought that comes, just stop it. Put your trainers on and go to the gym. Sounds so simple, but honestly, if you can develop that over time to stop the thought process and just go and do the things that you know benefit you, it becomes a lot easier because you don't need motivation. And prior to where I'm at in life now, I would always look for motivation to go to the gym, which led to me training completely inconsistently because you're just not motivated all the time. And fair play to you if you are somebody that can find motivation really easy, but that's not me. So I had to develop something that worked for me. No. So yeah, just to like kind of round up and end off on how we started with why is it taking us so long and what's the way around tackling the things you need to do is it sounds really simple, and Shia LaBeouf said it best, but just do it. It's true. Like it's, and that's funny about that whole Shia LaBeouf meme. I don't even know. Is that how you say his name properly? Shia LaBeouf. Is it Shia LaBeouf? Yeah.
LaBeouf,
so Shia LaBeouf. The thing that's funny about that whole just do it meme, I'm sure like you can add it in in case no one's ever seen it, but it's a funny meme, right? But it's literally one of the most relevant fucking things ever to come out of content creation in terms of like a positive message. And if you listen to the other stuff he's saying throughout like that kind of little rant that he goes on, it's so relevant. Like just do it. He says something about I can't remember specifically, but I'm sure you can throw it in there.
Don't let your dreams be dreams or something.
Don't let your dreams be dreams and just do it. Yeah, right. Because again, and that relates
manifest
to what
your life. Yeah,
that relates to what I was just saying about the thought process. Don't let your dreams be dreams and just do it. Like, don't let your mind creep in and start, just dreaming away of what you need to. Just get the things done that you know you need to do. Develop that mindset, and everything else will just follow and fall into place. And I would leave it there, to be honest.
That's a great closing sentiment, man.